From the oral history website, voicesofoklahoma.com, comes Voices of Sports Legends. It's a collection of events and interviews which sports historian Wayne McCombs recorded, preserved, and donated to voicesofoklahoma.com. You will hear A. Ray Smith, former owner of the then Tulsa Oilers baseball team, University of Tulsa football coach Glenn Dobbs, Jerry Weber, sports and news anchor for Channel 2 KJRH in Tulsa, Tulsa World sportswriter Bill Connors, and Oklahoma State baseball coach Gary Ward. We are very grateful to Wayne McCombs for the preservation of these voices and stories that are heard now on voicesofoklahoma.com.
Jerry Weber was one of Oklahoma's most beloved broadcasters. He was a reporter, sportscaster, news anchor, and storyteller. In 1969, he joined KJRH Channel 2 in Tulsa, Oklahoma as a reporter, and in 1971 was named sports director. His love for news prompted his move to news anchor in 1986. Wayne McCombs interviewed Jerry October 12, 1998, just 2 months before Jerry died December 19, 1998. Jerry was 62 when he lost his battle with cancer. You will hear Jerry talk about the University of Tulsa basketball program, Coach Nolan Richardson, the 1981 NIT Championship, Barry Switzer and Oklahoma football, and other topics. Listen to Wayne McCombs as he interviews Jerry Weber for Voices of Sports Legends on the oral history website, voicesofoklahoma.com.
Jerry, you grew up in Call City, Oklahoma, up in Osage County. Tell me about your boyhood and how you got involved in sports.
Well, radio was a big thing when I was growing up. St. Louis Cardinals, the only broadcast you could get in the state of Oklahoma when I was growing up as far as Major League Baseball. My dad and I'd get the milking done, and at night that was our recreation because, listening to the Cardinals. He was a great Cardinal fan. Now, we're talking about the days of Musial and Slaughter and Shane Dinks and Marty Marion and Harry the Cap Burkeen and some of those people that you got to be my age even to remember now or to be a great baseball fan. But that really got me hooked on baseball, and I never deviated from that team. I think because Cardinals were a good organization then. Mm-hmm. They and the Dodgers and the Yankees sort of set the standard, and they each had a particular style. They each had farm systems, that developed these fine players. And then there was something there was an aura around Stan Musial that I liked because he was always known as a gentleman as well as one of the great hitters that ever played the game. So that's where I got hooked.
Did you play sports in high school?
Played sports in high school, went to a tiny high school. Basketball was my best sport. Played baseball, ran track. I didn't have enough people to play football. There were only 12 people in my senior class, and 6 of those were boys. So, typical small-town Oklahoma.
Yeah. How did you get to go to college?
On a basketball scholarship, as a matter of fact.
Now, weren't you a big fan of Oklahoma A&M and
I was.
IBA's teams?
I was. Didn't get a chance to go to school there. And one of the again, you go back to radio, is one of the reasons I was such a big fan. They used to do a delayed broadcast of every OSU game. Now, Oklahoma A&M back then.
Yes.
When they were in the Missouri Valley Conference, at 10:30 at night on KVOO radio, a man by the name of John Henry would come on the air and would do the game, and Dad and I would listen to that. Again, there was a tie. I was born in Burbank, not far from Call City, and Burbank's another one of those towns of 200 people,
Yes.
There was a young fella named Norman Pilgrim who had grown up in Burbank and had played point guard at OSU. So there was that tie, and so we all emulated him. We all wanted to be like him. And of course, you got to remember, back then, Oklahoma A&M and University of Kansas were the scourge of the Midlands. I mean, Mr. Iba. I'll never forget the first time I ever got to see a live game in Gallagher Hall. A man took a bunch of us kids down there, and they were playing Kansas. And that's when a guy by the name of Clyde LaVellette was the big post guy for Kansas. They had a great team. And I have never in my life, had never before, been in an atmosphere like that, where you would open your mouth and scream and couldn't hear yourself, in Gallagher Hall. But that's what I grew up with. And radio had so much to do with it, with what I, and then on Saturday afternoons, you listen to the Sooners play football because they had that same kind of success when I was growing up with Bud Wilkinson coaching there.
Yeah.
And they had those great winning streaks. So you used your imagination before television, certainly before television was established at all. And I still miss those days because there's nothing like, when there is a good announcer at the microphone, nothing like using your imagination in sports.
Mm-hmm. When you, where'd you go to college?
Oklahoma City University.
What'd you major in?
English.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What made you want to get into to English? Did you want to teach school?
No, I wanted to write. The other thing is, it's the best thing I did. Oddly enough, for a country kid, I was good at English because I loved to read.
Yes.
I had learned to read when I was tiny. Reading always fascinated me. Books fascinated me. Newspapers fascinated me. And so it was the easiest thing for me, which sounds odd, but it was.
Mm-hmm. After you graduated from Oklahoma City, how did you get started into broadcasting?
Because I had a wife who loved me and knew that I needed to be doing something that, that was right for me. I grew up working in the oil fields and working on a ranch,
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. It's hard work. I could make a good living at it. Not something that you want to do all of your life. Mm-hmm. It's cold in the winter out there, and it's hot in the summer. And she was willing to sacrifice. I took a huge pay cut for my first radio job in Claremore, Oklahoma.
KWPR and
KWPR,
top of the hotel.
Top of the hotel. They'd just gone on the air, and they gave me an opportunity. And
we had to walk out on the roof of the building to get to the announce booth.
Yes, you did. And but it was a chance. And I was there only a month or so, and they had an interlocking ownership at that time with KVIN in Veneta, which was older and more established.
Yes.
They sent me up there, and I stayed 10 months.
Now, this is 1959, is that right?
Yeah, that's in that area. Greatest thing that ever happened to me. I'd get up in the morning. I'd be the old saddle shiner. Play country and western music, open the station at 5 o'clock in the morning, and give stock market reports, that kind of thing. Work that
shift. You're talking stock market, you're talking animal.
No, we're talking
you're not talking Dow Jones.
Canners and cutters and gilts and
sow bellies.
Sow bellies, that's what we're talking
about.
That's
right.
And then about 9 o'clock, I'd go home. My wife would fix breakfast. I'd bathe and shave. I'd go out and sell advertising. Come back about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, about the time school's out, change my voice and do a rock and roll show.
What was your name there?
Well, I don't even remember, what my name was. The most important thing was to change my voice where you didn't recognize the old saddle shiner. And then if there was a high school football or basketball game that night, this is a daytime only station.
Yes.
I'd take a tape recorder out and record it, and we'd play it back on the weekend.
That's right.
Then I would come back, I'd sweep out. The only thing I didn't get involved with was engineering. And so I got the greatest education in broadcasting in about 10 months, practical education that you can get. And from there went back to my wife's hometown of Ponca City and stayed there until I came here.
So your wife was from the big city of Ponca City.
Big city of Ponca City. And I mean that. There were 3 movie theaters there.
Okay, you're in Ponca City. We're about, 66, 67?
Yeah.
In there. And how did you learn of the job opening at then KVOO Television in Tulsa?
Well, Harold Stewart, the owner of KVOO at the time, they were up there attempting to get a franchise for cable.
Early cable
television. And they had heard me, and they had offered me a job, and I'd turned it down because by then I was managing the station. working on a percentage, had a good job, lifetime job. They were owned by the newspaper.
Yeah. Is this WBBZ?
WBBZ.
Uh-huh.
Great ownership, and at home, not far from where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned them down a couple of times before I finally thought, well, this new television thing, if I'm going to do it, I can't wait much longer, age-wise. And so I finally accepted it.
So you came to KJRH Television in 1969.
Right, March 3rd.
You were hired to do sports.
Right.
But what happened? You were the anchor of the news.
Right. Yeah, just an accident. The young man who was doing that, his wife had to be taken to the hospital, was about to miscarry.
Mm-hmm.
And they had told me, I'd never been on camera in my life, said, Jerry, we'll teach you how to relate to a camera for a couple of weeks before you go on the air. First day I get here, his wife begins to miscarry or threaten to. And they got nobody to put on the air. We didn't have staffs the size you have now. And so for about 2 weeks, I wind up anchoring the 6 and 10 news.
Well, in those days, in the television reporters area, you did the radio news also.
Yeah.
There was a microphone,
which I was accustomed to doing.
The guys in the booth upstairs at KVO Radio would buzz you, hey, you're ready to go on the air, and you would do the news actually from the television reporters desk. Those were the days with Alan Lambert as Captain Allen and Lynn,
great times.
Lynn Morton as sports.
Oh, great times.
A terrific
Ron
staff.
Franklin was here.
Yeah. And so you do news for a while, and then how do you get back into sports?
I do news. I anchor news. He comes back. His wife does all right. He comes back. They like what I did. They give me the 6. He does the 10. Pretty soon, he takes off for another job in another state. And so I anchored the news until Jack Morris came over from Channel 8.
That's right. That was big news.
Oh, that was big news because he was a famous anchor and had been there for years.
He'd been on since they signed on. He was at KTUL radio.
Yeah.
And was their newsman there for years. Switched to television.
Right.
And when Channel 2 KVOO brought Jack Morris over here in 1970, that was
major news.
Giant news.
And so what happened was I reported for him then until Scripps Howard bought this station in 70. And then I finally got to do what I was hired for, which was do sports.
Well, Mr. Stewart sold KVOO Television because he thought he would get the Tulsa Cable franchise rights and thought there would be conflict of interest, so he sold it to Scripps Howard.
And there was also a problem of a lot of stations at that time who owned more than one entity, like radio and television, felt they better divest.
Right.
Because the FCC was doing strange things.
It's a little different today.
Yeah, really.
But back then,
the opposite now.
Yeah, where it was so tight, and now there's almost no control.
Yeah.
Well, you get into sports in 1970, and about that time, the sports era is about to change. The days of Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays and Stan Musial and Johnny Unitas, Jim Brown, those days are about over, and we're getting into the new athlete, the Joe Namath, the Reggie Jackson, the Muhammad Ali people. And you begin your sports career at that time. Tell me about switching over to sports and what's the difference between reporting sports now and reporting sports back in 1970, although it's only been a little over 28 years or so. It's changed dramatically, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's changed, which is the reason I was willing to change and go to news, because back then you didn't worry a lot about player unions and strikes, number one. You didn't worry a whole bunch about drugs and that sort of thing. I mean, maybe some guy went and drank too much, but you didn't worry about what you and I call hard drugs, which took a lot of the fun out of it. I just had the feeling that the players were not mercenary back then, that they were playing because they loved to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to remember, Wayne, that I am doing sports here at really a renaissance period of time. I mean, during that lengthy period of time, because you got Barry Switzer at Oklahoma.
Just began, right?
They're going to win national championships. Jimmy Johnson makes a stop off in Stillwater. And I remember one year, before Jimmy came, they had some probation problems and they'd lost some scholarships. one year he won 7 or 8 ball games with more walk-ons than he had scholarship players. So
Yes.
you knew he could coach.
Yes.
Lou Holtz was spending some time at Arkansas during that period of time. You got John Cooper at TU, who's one of the classiest guys
Right.
that ever coached, who has his team number 1 in the polls at Ohio State now.
Right.
And then, on top of all of this, you throw in a Nolan Richardson comes in, you know, and turns this town on its ear in 1981. But you can't forget, too, that during that period of time, Major League Soccer comes. Well, to this strange state. I must have been past 30 years old before I ever saw a soccer ball growing
Yes.
up in Oklahoma.
Right.
You know, and it comes here and does well, and is still doing well. I mean, you know,
Right.
it's still a great kid sport here. And then the Oklahoma Outlaws, we have a summer pro football league.
Mm-hmm.
So during my period of time, it was a renaissance.
Right.
And I loved every minute of it.
And we go from maybe the worst baseball facility for any type of baseball
Yeah.
to maybe
Snaggletooth Ballpark.
the probably not more than 1 or 2 minor league ballparks. It's better than Driller
Yeah.
Park.
And kept playing through all of that period of time.
Right. Bill Rollins deserves a lot of
Bill
credit.
Rollins
Yeah.
ought to be named president for what he did, you know, and
Yeah.
just keeping things alive. He and Roy and the guitar pickers and this and that.
Well, you helped in 1980,
Yeah.
79, I believe. You helped organize a telethon
We did.
to help save Tulsa baseball.
Right.
And that night,
Roy came down, did some picking
Roy
and
Clark,
running.
right? And they had
Jana
all
Jay.
you had all these people from Hee Haw,
Right.
in the studio here at Channel 2, and you did an
Raised
hour
some money.
telethon, and you raised. It was your idea to raise money to save baseball.
And it worked. I mean, all of it together worked.
Yeah.
And now, as you say, we've got this great facility. But you know what? I still miss that old ballpark before it fell down.
Old Oiler Park
Yeah.
was probably, structure-wise, it was weak, but design-wise, it was probably one of the best designed ballparks.
It was. Nooks
Ever.
and crannies in that place.
And you were 5 feet away from the
Right.
on-deck batter. You could hear people in the press box
Yeah.
yelling down at the players. It was a terrific ballpark. It's too bad that it had the accident in 76 or 77 had to be torn down.
I'm delighted with what we've got now.
No, it's a beautiful.
Because if they eventually want AAA baseball, that's going to happen because the support is here.
Right.
obviously.
Right. Tell me about your as sports begins to change in the early 70s. In years past, the local reporter might go down and cover an OU game, might go over and cover an Oklahoma State basketball game, but that's it. Now all of a sudden, Jerry, you're going down to Norman to cover all these terrific games. Tell me about the game of the century. November 1971,
Yep.
Oklahoma and Nebraska, probably the greatest college game played really in this century, was held. Tell me about that ball game where Nebraska won, but it was a little tainted by a no call on a penalty.
Yeah, but you know, probably Nebraska deserved to win. I read something just very recently, and I know you read it too, that Barry Switzer said that the one regret he had about that game is that he did not throw the ball to John Harrison more that day, because
Yes.
Harrison was open
Yes.
that day, and Mildren, you know, they had this connection, he and Mildren did anyway. The thing that I remember about that game was the huge dominating line of the University of Nebraska that has not changed in all these years since.
Yes.
Because I remember the last drive that they made. I don't think Nebraska, on their last drive, made more than 4 yards on any play, but they consistently whacked out 3 and 4 yards on every play.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't because OU was out of position. It wasn't because OU was tired. It wasn't because OU didn't have athletes. It was just that here was this mammoth line that did everything right and just whipped them off of the line of scrimmage, you know, and dominated the clock. And I remember I had a great photographer with me that day and took some footage, and I've looked at that footage many times since. OU gets the ball one last time, and he's got a shot of Milburn coming in and his back end and his jersey's halfway torn off, and
shoulder pads hanging off the wrong way, and
he looks like exactly what he is. I mean, he has been a warrior, and he's going to be on the losing team, but they got this one last shot, and he turns, and I forget whether he handed the ball to Wiley. I can't remember who he handed the ball to, and he was just hit right in the mouth at the line of scrimmage. I mean, just drilled and dropped at the line of scrimmage. And this good photographer, smart enough, he wheels quickly to shoot his cutaway in the stands, and you can read in slow motion. You can read this woman's lips, this OU fan's lips, clearly saying, "Oh no," and you can see the tears coming down. And it said the whole thing. It summed it all up.
Yeah.
It was the game of the century. And I'm not going to tell you, and I love OU football, and I loved it then. I'm not going to tell you that the best team didn't win. Nebraska was a very good football team that day.
What was your relationship like with Barry Switzer in the good times, and then toward the end, and when he left?
I never had a bad relationship with him. I always admired him. I still think he's as good a football coach as I ever met. Because for the same reason that Nolan Richardson's a great basketball coach, kids related to him. Play their hearts out for him. Now that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's you can say what you want, but when kids love you and will lay it all on the line for you and believe you, that's really what college athletics is about. What I found out early on about Barry Switzer was if you're him sitting here and I'm the 15th of 40 interviews he's got to do today, at the press day or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If I have prepared myself with intelligent questions, not just the usual, well, what's Jamil Holloway going to do, or, whatever.
Yeah.
But to challenge his intellect, he responded to that. He loved it, and you would get great answers from him, and he would respect you for it, And so I always worked very hard at that, at not being one of those guys who came in and did the obvious, but let him know that I had done a little extra study, whether it was an offensive tackle who got a key block or whatever it was. And so I always got great interviews with him.
Now, one thing a lot of people don't know, in the mid-'70s, of course, you would do the 6 o'clock sports and come back for the 10 o'clock sports. But tell the people what you did in between the 6 o'clock sports and the 10 o'clock sports in the summertime.
Oh, I coached.
You coached Legion baseball.
I coached Legion baseball. Before that, I coached Mickey Mantle baseball. In the wintertime, the system's still pretty much the same here in Tulsa Public Schools. I coached football and basketball at what was then the junior high level, which would now be the middle school level. Most fun I ever had. But yeah, Legion baseball, now that's a challenge. I think it's over my head because I ran into guys like Walt Rona,
Yeah.
And Walt knew what he was doing. Walt would beat me I don't know how many times he beat me 1-0 or 2-1, and some little squeeze play or something, would be out there. But it was great because, you get kids at that age, they're out there because they want to be there.
Yes.
They feel like there's a scout watching, or there's still a chance for a scholarship, or they love the game, and that makes it easy.
Things change a little bit again in 1980. At the University of Tulsa, there's some broadcasting changes with their television coaches show playbacks and their radio situation over there. For years and years, they were with KBOO, and Lynn Morton did all the ball games, and then some things changed there. And in 1980, the University of Tulsa hires you in Channel 2 to do both John Cooper's coach's show and the new coach they hired, some guy named Nolan Richardson. And then they asked you, hey, Jerry, would you want to do the games on the radio?
Right.
Tell me about the beginning of your, well, I knew you already were enjoyed University of Tulsa sports, but now you were right in the thick of things with John Cooper and Nolan Richardson. Tell me about broadcasting those games on 1430 back in 1980 with John Cooper and then with Nolan Richardson.
I guess, as I look back at my career, it was the apex. Mm-hmm. And I mean that sincerely, because I liked them so much, still do, as human beings as well as coaches, and admire them. We had so much fun. I traveled with the teams.
Yes.
You know, and we did so many things, spent so many intimate hours together. And by that I mean after a game when you're winding down and maybe you have lost a game that maybe was taken away from you, you feel deep in your heart, and trying to help a coach wind down from that on a friendship basis, you know. I loved it. And
well, you had two guys that were pretty even tempered.
Yeah, you really did. But I know early on there were not a lot of black coaches.
No.
In basketball around this part of the country when Nolan started. And I think Nolan had a right to believe early on that very close calls on foreign courts, sometimes he didn't get the break. Mm-hmm. And he and I would talk about that deep into the night, you know. And to this day, I have so much respect for him. You know, I've not met a better coach.
Yeah.
For the very reason we were talking about a while ago, that he worked his kids harder than anybody I've ever seen. Yet they loved him because they knew he was doing what was best for them. You know, they understood that. So they would accept it. And there were no respecter of persons. It didn't matter whether you're Paul Presley, you know, or whether you're Rondi.
Yeah.
You know, you do the same thing, and you do it hard. And but they knew that deep in their heart that he loved them.
Well, let's go back just to the contrast. Before Nolan came, Tulsa was playing, in front of 2,000 to 3,000 people in the convention center. They didn't have the end zone set in the convention center where they brought the stands setting in there. And they do that for Nolan's second game. They opened the season in 80 with wins over Central State and Southwest Missouri State. Then they play the defending national champions. This is December the 4th, 1980. And the atmosphere of that game, do you still remember calling that ball game?
Oh, it's electric.
That was the loudest. Electric. You know, for years, Tulsa hadn't had a very competitive team. And then all of a sudden, they're not only playing well, but they're beating the national champion at the University of Tulsa.
And Louisville was missing only one player from that national championship team, who had gone on to, I think he's playing for the Utah Jazz, the guard, you know. Had everybody else back. And you remember the incident that happened in that game, very late in the game. Wiley Brown comes, who's like a 6'7", 6'8" guy, comes off of the bench and hits David Brown at the University of Tulsa in the back of the head.
The wrong guy to hit.
Wrong guy to hit, but plants him right there. And anyway, Tulsa goes on and wins this ball game. And now let me tell you a little something that you may or may not know. I may have told you this story before. Our next ball game, we travel, as I recall, to Creighton.
OU.
Okay.
I can edit that.
All right.
We don't play Creighton until down here. We get stuck. We're on a winning streak.
Okay.
Until we get down here, we lose.
Okay. Well, let me tell you the story.
I'll edit that.
Okay.
While we're at a break, let me just to be sure. Okay.
Now, later on, January 3rd, we're playing at Creighton, Omaha, Nebraska.
Conference game.
Same time, Louisville is playing at Kansas State. All right?
Okay.
Now, remember, we've played this game a month or so earlier, and Wiley Brown is hitting David Brown late in the game. And So we have a little commuter flight back from Creighton the day after the game to Kansas City to change planes to get back to Tulsa. Louisville, coming back from Kansas State, has a layover in the same airport in Kansas City to get back to Louisville. Well, we're sitting there eating breakfast, Nolan and I, and I look around, and here is Louisville coming into this air terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And I know David Brown does not have a short memory. And so I turned to Nolan, and he said, "We got to go find him." So we take off. Well, we find a gift shop, and sure enough, as fate would have it, Wiley Brown of Louisville's in this little gift shop looking around, and David Brown sees him in there. Well, here's Nolan and I in there. Nolan, when he tells the story, we're setting picks. We're trying to keep these two people apart.
Yes.
I mean, 2'6'7", 2'6'8" guys having a big fight in a Kansas City airport isn't going to help either one of these programs,
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, here I am, this little white guy that comes about to David's belt buckle. And so far, Wiley has not seen David. Wiley pays for whatever it was he bought, starts out the door, and David hollers at him. Well, I just threw my arms around him, to do what I could do. And Nolan tells Wiley to, move on back to his team, And he takes David. That's a circular airport up there.
Mm-hmm.
He takes him around the circle, or out of my hearing, and they're gone for about 15 minutes. And when they come back, the first thing before he leaves, he said, "David," he said, "you want to be right back in that gutter that you have climbed out of.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
You're bigger than that." So he takes him around the corner. About 15 minutes they come back, and David's been crying. And the first thing Nolan has him do is come and apologize to me. Well, he doesn't owe me any apology.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just the way Nolan worked. But I think that story says more about Nolan and his kids than any that I could tell you. The only other that, reminds me of the kind of kids they were. After beating Louisville, we go to the University of Oklahoma. Take a bus down there.
Right.
Okay?
Play Billy Tubbs.
Play Billy Tubbs and beat Billy Tubbs in Oklahoma at the University of Oklahoma.
Right.
Okay? Well, to me, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
To most TU fans.
Yes.
That's a pretty big deal. Well, what they do when you go on a bus like that, the trainer always finds some place where there's some fast food or something that when the game's over, they shove it onto the bus.
Boxes of
chicken, that kind of thing, so the guys can have something to eat as we start on our trip home. So we get on the bus, and they stop at this fast food place, and they shovel the chicken on, and I think, boy, what a celebration it is going to be all the way back down that turnpike to Tulsa, because TU has beaten the University of Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's quiet. I think, well, okay, they're eating. These guys are starved. They've put out all this tremendous amount of energy. By the time, when they finish eating, that's when the celebration will start. Because I've been on buses before,
yes.
Where you celebrate, And so we get to the turnpike gate to turn east toward Tulsa. About the time I think we're going to be shouting and jumping and high-fiving, and they're all asleep. They're all asleep. And I finally figured out, you and I thought that was a big deal to beat the University of Oklahoma. remember, several of these guys had come off of a 37-0 team that had won the
Right.
junior college national championship the year before. These guys expected to win. They expected to win. There was no big surprise. It was a workmanlike game for them. And again, I go back to Nolan Richardson. He imbued them with that kind of confidence.
Yes. Well, you're so involved with the team. Didn't you give every player a nickname on the squad?
Yeah, you kind of do.
I know Al Jerkins came up with Rubber Band Man.
He did a
for Paul
piece.
Pressey.
He did a
Right.
piece on him called "The Rubber Band Man," which is a classic.
Yes.
And but you just I don't think I ever purposely did that, but I did it because things I would hear in practice and things that they would remind me of as they went down the court, things I learned about them as people, in private.
Well, Mike Anderson, a short basketball player for those guys, you nicknamed him Mighty Mike.
Yeah.
And he would take a charge,
Yes,
and
he would.
he'd wind up on the third row of the bleachers to take a charge for the squad.
Right.
And Phil Spradling, he kind of had long hair at that time, and he'd run down the court fast, and you named him Roadrunner,
Yep.
and that stuck.
Yeah, he
So-
was, and big old Greg,
Yeah, Greg Stewart.
Big old Greg, I got such a kick out of him because he was such a talent. Strange thing about him, he could not play his best without David Brown on the floor with him. And when David got the bad knee later in his career, it really showed up in Greg as much as it did David.
Well, that was a special group of kids. Those 2
Love 'em.
years that Nolan was here.
They really were. Paul Pressey, I still talk to Paul from time to time, and and people sometimes don't understand me quite when I say this. Paul Pressey meant the same thing to the TU basketball program that Larry Bird meant to Indiana State, in that he made everybody else better. That was the great thing about Paul Pressey.
Yeah.
He made everybody else better.
Well, back in those days with Nolan, there was that intense rivalry with Wichita State. They were good.
They've
were,
got guys still playing in the pros.
Yeah,
from back
they
then.
were good. But one game I went on as a statistician for you. I think it was just to get a free ticket to the game. When we went up to Wichita, and it's February of '81, and Tulsa won a double overtime game in the roundhouse there at Wichita. And if you haven't been to a basketball game in Wichita, winning any type of game in that arena was great. Of course, they had the crazy coaches, and they had the fans, and they had some darn good players.
They're great athletes.
And I remember, Jerry, I was sitting by you. Paul Pressey was at the free throw line, and he struggled from there. He wasn't a great free throw shooter, probably shot 60%.
Right.
And he was fouled late in the game, and I was sitting next to you doing the stats, and he had a 1-and-1. The score was tied. He shot one that just barely rolled in. It barely rolled in, and the other one went up and seemed to hang on the rim.
Yeah.
And you elbowed me in the stomach. You elbowed me in the stomach. He made it.
Yes.
You were broadcasting game. I was doing that. You elbowed me in the stomach, and the game was over, and the fans started throwing paper wads at us. That was exciting.
It really was. And that night, when we got on the bus, is the first time in that entire year, and there were some big victories, that this team was affected. Who was that? It may have been Bruce Vanley, who got on the bus with a boom box, and on the boom box was playing "Celebrate."
Yes.
And for the first time, those guys did celebrate.
Yeah.
That win meant something to them in that setting. And for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, they clapped and had a good time, like I thought they were going to do after the OU game.
Those are some great years, and the trip to New York for the NIT, that was just amazing. being a TU fan for years, and here we get to go to New York. And I remember this. I'm going to tell a little story on you. We went this was at San Diego when we went to San Diego at the Cabrillo Classic in '82. We played Raleigh Massimino and things. I carried all my luggage on a carry-all. You remember joking with me, teasing me because I carried all my luggage on and was lugging this big piece of luggage? Tell them what happened to your luggage, Jerry.
I'm not sure where it wound up.
You lost it. I think it wound up in Albuquerque or something. And you remember you had to go to the store in the hotel to buy a clean shirt. You were complaining it was back then like $25 for a clean shirt. And I remember just sitting laughing at you.
But that was a great setting.
Yeah, it was.
The Cabrillo Classic was a great setting. We stayed at a historic old hotel.
Yeah, where they made some movies.
Made a lot of movies and Kings and this and that stay.
Another thing about the trip in '81 to New York City. Where did we go for a side trip? Do you remember
we went to Yankee Stadium.
Remember we went to Yankee Stadium?
Went to Yankee Stadium.
Do you remember how we got there?
Yes, I remember that we went on. I thought we were going to not get there.
Well,
subway.
You remember there was 4 or 5 of us.
Right.
We were going to go to Yankee Stadium to get a tour, and we weren't. Here we are from Claremore and Caw City and Berry Hill trying to find our way in New York City, and we ran toward a train late that was going to take us to Yankee Stadium. And it was like one of those movies. The train started pulling out and the doors started going in, and we all got on except this last trainer, this one little young trainer. And he leaped in, grabbed hold of the pole, and his foot came down on this very large person that
was a native of New York.
Right. And so you can guess where we were going. And this guy, remember the words that came out of his mouth? We didn't hear in Sunday school.
No.
And we looked around, and there were only people from the New York area in there with us. And we had stuff on it that said Tulsa Golden Hurricane. It might as well said Hicks from the Sticks. And the announcer on the train said, "Next stop, Harlem." And we start to sweat. And then tell them, what do? You remember what you did to the man that was cussing?
I remember talking to him. And
you turned around and started talking to him about the weather. And he looked at you like you were from Mars.
Yes.
And he got
I don't know what else to do.
And he got off on the next stop.
And I was scared to death.
And we were just, oh no, I could see it now, Hicks killed on subway station.
But it turned out all to be worth it when we get to Yankee Stadium, where I'd never been in my life.
Yes.
And we get to see the monuments, and we got to see Steinbrenner's office.
Remember we went to Steinbrenner's office, and they showed us around all through Yankee Stadium. We got to go to the clubhouse, and remember we called people at home on the phone from the Yankee Stadium dugout. We were calling our friends up.
It was a great trip, but the end of that trip, coming in that March morning.
Right, we had won.
4:30.
Right, we had won the NIT, had won it in overtime. We didn't stay all night. We just got on a plane after the game was over.
And it was late because Nolan had the press conference, and you got the ceremony with the presentation.
Right. So it was 4:30 in the morning when we land out at Tulsa International Airport.
And it's cold. And we get on final approach, and the pilot comes on, and he says, "I am told that there are some people waiting for you all here." Now, this is 4:30 in the morning, as you know.
We thought maybe the wives or the girlfriends.
Well, yeah, or maybe a fraternity, still had part of a six-pack left or something, But we roll up to that baggage area where the charters come in and look out across there. They open the door and look out across there. And all of these hundreds of homemade signs and all of these people. And we get on that old white activity bus, TU used to
I think it's still out there.
and go rolling through them. And after all of the thrills, the goosebumps just were incredible. And, of course, that carried over into the next day at Bartlett Square.
Remember the Bartlett Square? And there was 20,000 people down there at Bartlett Square?
Turned this town on its ear like it never has been.
Right. Those were some great days.
The best.
Yeah.
The very best.
Well, let's go now. You continue to do sports. The scene in Tulsa begins to stabilize somewhat. They have success at University of Tulsa in football and basketball with John Cooper and Don Morton, and J.D. Barnett comes in and has a couple of good years to start off with. Oklahoma's still winning championships. Oklahoma State becomes a power in college football. It seems like the drillers are turning around. Now that franchise seems stable. A young kid from Ohio, Joe Pressman, comes in and works magic here with baseball. And then in 1986, you make a switch.
Right.
You leave something that is really dear to your heart, and you love it, to go to news.
Well,
what happened?
I left something that had become too easy. Also, you know, when you get to a certain age, Wayne, you got to be challenged, because if you're not challenged, you don't do your best work. Now, I could be challenged at the OU Texas game, but that's once a year.
Yes.
Or, you know, but also remember this. My very close friends have gone. Nolan Richardson has gone to the University of Arkansas. I miss him.
Yes.
John Cooper has gone to Arizona State on his way to Ohio State. I miss him. Not that the new fellows, I enjoyed Don Morton and all those guys.
Right, you continue to do their show.
Oh, yeah. But there was a relationship that I had really become dependent upon, you know, with Nolan and John and people like that. And then there was this challenge of, in news, you can make a bigger impact, you know, on your community, on your station, on ratings. And we're talking about ratings, you know.
In the broadcast business, that's what makes the world go round. That's right.
And so we decided to go that direction, and I didn't regret it. If I couldn't have watched sports anymore, I would have regretted it, you know. But I'm as big a sports fan today as I was the last day I did sports. I just have to do it in a quieter way and not try to influence somebody's opinion whose responsibility it is to cover sports, you know.
Now, you never influenced anybody here on the St. Louis Cardinals?
Oh, I've tried. But you know, Al's a Yankee fan.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about some of the people that have worked for you and that you hired. Ron Franklin, he's now a nationwide broadcaster, left here and went to Houston.
Right, Ron was here when I came here. Ron is an Ole Miss grad and is one of the finest gentlemen that there ever has been, worked in Houston for years. I think he has his own production company now that does a lot of the University of Texas coaching shows and this and that, and he does a lot of stuff for ESPN, naturally. He's just a classy guy, and I'm so proud of Al Jerkins. You know, he came to work during my period of time because he's so talented.
If anybody could take a Yankee and make him, you know, make him where you could get along with him, you did.
Well, let me tell you, the great thing about Al, here's what people need to understand about Al. Nobody can outwork Al. Al will outwork you. Now, I respect that. I mean, I learned that from my daddy a long time ago. You know, they may be bigger and stronger and prettier, but they can't outwork you. And Al has that philosophy. Boy, when he was working for me, if I worked all night on a coaching show, Al worked all night. I didn't have to ask him.
Yes.
I mean, that's Al. That's the way he is. So I really love and admire his work, and he's creative. He's extremely creative. And then,
you allowed him, back in the early 80s, one of the first times ever I remember seeing feature sports reporting.
Yeah.
That was Al. You could see his talent come through on the report on Paul Pressey. If anybody saw that report on Paul Pressey, the rubber band man, you're going to remember that.
And it's as fresh today as when he did it.
That's right. And the stories you did, not necessarily, you were one of the first people I remember seeing covering girls' sports, not just reporting the scores, but talking about the girl and what she had to go through to play sports in high school and college. And you covered...
we did pioneer a lot of that, and I'm proud of that because high schools were good to me, and I thought they were very much overlooked when I became sports director here, and so we did a lot with the high schools. But, you know, Jeff Metters is one of mine.
ESPN,
extremely talented, sky's the limit for him.
Dick Pryor?
Dick Pryor, who hosts OETA's news in the evening, worked for me. Todd Whitthorne, he's a lot like Al in how hard he works. If I said, and I've even forgotten the quarterback's name down in Mississippi that everybody's recruiting at OU eventually got, and he turned out to be a bust. But he'd get in the car, he and the photographer, they'd drive to Mississippi, and it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me to ask him, it didn't bother him to do it.
Right.
That's good. That's the reason those people become successful.
Then you also worked, actually not in sports here at Channel 2. He was in the news department, but he was your sidekick on the radio broadcast, was Bob Stevens, who's now with ESPN.
And doing a very, very good work. And then I had two guys, that TU fans all know, Neil Jones and Mike Davis.
Yes.
Because you talk about guys who had talent and worked hard, but remained anonymous. Because all of those coaches shows we were doing live, and when we were doing the football coaches live, you're turning them around the next morning at 11 o'clock.
Well, the game is over at 10:30.
Well, we may be playing at Florida State.
Right, and you still have to have the game on the next morning.
Still got to have the live show. And so Neil and Mike shot and edited,
all night.
I'd go all night long. I'd go through and mark highlights, and then I would ad-lib the show, just the coach and I had ad-lib it, which gave it its spontaneity anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But they're immensely talented. Neil's in Kansas City now doing very well, and Mike's at TCI Cable still doing the coach's show for TU and doing extremely well.
Mm-hmm. You go to news in 1986, and you remain through news to 1997, and one of the best features I've ever seen is the Positively Oklahoma series that you had for years, where you didn't go out and interview the governor, you didn't go out and interview the mayor or a superstar athlete. You went around to interview the people, really, I think, that most people identify with. You interviewed a farmer. You would interview a lady that ran a bakery and got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you would make an interesting and detailed story out of the common folk.
Well,
did you have that in the back of your mind all these years?
Yeah. Because I'm a native Oklahoman. The president or the governor or the legislature make laws and this and that, but this state America runs on the common man and woman who get up every day and take care of the responsibilities. And I admire them so greatly because my father was that kind of man. My mother is that kind of woman. And we take them for granted. They take themselves for granted a lot of times. They've got these marvelous skills that they just take for granted, but people identify with them. And I knew they would. And so, no, that's been the most gratifying thing I've done.
And then now you've changed it up just a little bit now that you have gotten off the nightly news desk and produced the feature, the Heartland series, which again is a little bit different version of
it's expanded,
Positively
really.
Oklahoma, but 5 minutes every night. Now, a lot of people will, where's Jerry? I don't see him on every night, but 5 minutes. What's he doing all day long? What's the average time, Jerry, it takes till the time you get an idea for a story, by the time you secure the interview, travel to the interview the person, do some research, edit the show, record the show? How many hours does it take to do one of those 5-minute shows?
Well, it takes a long time. And the travel is the thing. You can... What we wind up doing is when you get in a time bind, you try to do more of them closer to town and maybe get 2 in the can in one day because my preference is to travel. There's great stories down the Kiamichi. There's great stories in Tahlequah. But when you start figuring in your travel time and this and that and the writing time and the editing time, you can get yourself in a bind. And we have to have one of those every day, 5 days a week, And so it just takes a little planning. It takes a little planning.
Well, before I let you go, Jerry, I want to talk about how many high school sports banquets have you hosted? How many end of the year University of Tulsa athletic programs have you hosted? And then tell me what your total fee has been that you've made over these hundreds of times going around speaking to schools.
Well,
I'll tell them you've charged nothing.
Well, it's true.
You have never charged anything.
And I don't know how many I've done, but I tell you, it's a labor of love. It really has been. Here's the thing about it, Wayne, that when you talk about education, when you talk about high schools and colleges, and when you talk about religion, you're talking about two entities that don't have a lot of money to spread around. I'm willing to give my time for those. Now, if there's some big corporation that wants me to talk to them and they've got some extra money that they want to pay, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not do it. But I am available to education and religious institutions for zero. If my health is good and because we have to have those. I mean, if we don't have education, if we don't have a place to worship, we don't have anything.
Right.
And if all it requires of old Jerry Weber is to say, get up in front of people and talk, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that.
Well, most of the people I'm sure know that you've announced here recently. Well, let me go back. Let's go back to September of this year. The University of Tulsa and the governor of Oklahoma honor you at halftime of one of the biggest games they've ever had at Skelly Stadium, the Tulsa-Oklahoma State game in September of '98. What was it like to walk out on that field, not as a reporter, not looking for the guy that recovered the fumble? What was it like when you walked out on the field and those people in the stands stood up?
Well, it was overwhelming. I'm glad I didn't have to make a speech, Wayne, because I could not.
For once you couldn't.
No, it was just so overwhelming, and this huge contingent of TU fans right in front of me got up and just took my breath away. This is after the governor had made the presentation, and first of all, that's a special place to me out there.
Mm-hmm.
I spent so many happy hours out there, and President Lawless and his wife, were so generous to us also, and to have my family with me out there, my wife, my children, and their children. I had grandchildren with me out there. I've never had a more signal honor in my life, and I thank everybody involved, the governor, the university, and all the great fans. But you're right, when those fans rose up and started waving that hurricane flag, and I saw Cleve Ann's husband,
Don Kerberger,
up there waving, and I almost lost it. I thought, Don, let me get off of this field, with a dry eye if I possibly can. But it was special.
One more thing. Of course, many people know that you've been diagnosed with a form of cancer, and you are treating it, still working most of the time, and doing fine. But I want people to know that the man Jerry Weber is more than sports and having a good time and reporting on television and being seen with the governor or Barry Switzer or somebody. Tell me about your faith, Jerry. You haven't been ashamed to share it.
No.
You haven't been a person that maybe points a finger in somebody's face, but you'll share your relationship with Christ. Tell me how that has helped you through the years, and then at this point in your life.
Wayne, I've often said I'd be afraid to get up in the morning if I didn't know there were a God. I would be afraid to get up in the morning. I'd be by myself, and I couldn't handle that. I'd be scared to death. And so, my faith goes back to when I was a tiny child, when I had good parents and who took me to church with them. And so when this thing came about, the thing that sustained me the most is my religious faith, because I know it's serious. It's as serious as it can get, but I don't dwell on that, because I dwell on what the Lord can do for me. If He chooses to. If He doesn't, I have lived a wonderful life. I have no regrets about anything. And so somebody asked me the other day, said, boy, the tough times must be late at night, when you're trying to go to sleep and thinking about, no, that's not true. I mean, that's where my faith sustains me. I sleep good and get up the next morning ready to go again, because I don't plan on rolling over and just, accepting whatever comes my way. I intend to pray and fight and pray until I win this thing.
One way or the other, you will win.
Absolutely.
Great.